Hello, welcome to Life Matters. My name is Brendan O'Connell. Well, we have two very special guests who've come all the way from Ann Arbor. I found them wandering around on the street and I asked them if they'd be on the show today. And they said, sure, Brendan, no problem. So I thought I'd read a little bit of their background, and I think you'll be quite amazed at who we have today. Our first guest is Sister Joseph Andrew Bogdanowicz, who's of the Order of Preachers, which is she's one of the four founders of the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of Eucharist. And as a community's vocation director, she travels throughout the United States and beyond, giving talks that employ scripture and anthropology and psychology, guiding audiences to greater understanding of the divine image in both male and female and the authority that is entrusted to each, particularly the unique authority given to women in the church. Sister also has contributed to various Catholic journals and magazines and led countless retreats for vocational discernment, as well as for parishes, schools, and universities. Recently, the sister and her community produced a CD, Mater Euchariste, which is awarded Billboard's #2 Classic Traditional Artist of 2013. You're into music too? Oh my goodness, wow. And in her community, 17 years of existence, it's grown from just 4 nuns, of which she's one of the founders, to over 120 members, with women coming from 34 states in the USA, as well as Canada. Well, welcome, Sister.
Thank you, Brendan.
And you've brought along another sister with you, and her name is Sister Maria Veritas Marks. She's Order of Preachers also. She graduated from Harvard in May of 2010, and in August entered the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of Eucharist, drawn to the community's Eucharistic and Marian devotion and its commitment to studying and preaching the truth. Well, that's what we try to do here on this show. And she made her first vows in 2013 and is currently pursuing a master's in theology at Ave Maria University in Florida. She writes a regular column in the Michigan Catholic, the Detroit's Archdiocesan newspaper, and in her studies, teaching, and writing maintains an interest in promoting the dignity of the human person, an interest that found expression at Harvard in her membership in and presidency of Harvard Right to Life. Well, welcome, Sister Maria Veritas.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Now, how is it that you find yourself here in Boston? What brings you here, and other than Life Matters, of course?
Well, we are visiting the Boston area. It's a wonderful place to meet young people because there are so many universities here and colleges here, and we love to spread the witness of religious life and speak to young people about vocations, about what God is calling them to do. So we've been able to do that the past couple of days.
Mm-hmm. And how is it now that, so many so many people don't even think of becoming a nun in this day and age? I know when I was growing up in the 70s, people really weren't talking about either becoming priests or nuns. No, it was almost spurned at the time. Do you find a receptivity nowadays to this, or what's going on that's maybe different now?
There's an amazing receptivity today, and I credit it to Pope John Paul the Great, Saint Pope John Paul the Great, because he really taught youth that they were important, and they weren't important for the future, they were important now. Like, the church is you now, and we need you. And in that responsibility that he called them to, they began to think beyond the present moment to what am I to do in my life. And so they became very open to whatever vocation God would be calling them to. And I think that's very much the fruits of our community, because we were founded on the cusp of the new evangelization, the new millennium. Mm-hmm. And so I think the vocations that we are receiving are very much that John Paul II effect, so to speak, of openness to the divine plan and wanting their lives to really count, whatever their vocation would be, but in openness to it and not being afraid. And that's essential.
How about the societal pressure of not becoming a religious? How do you break through that, or how do you open people's minds to the possibility of becoming religious, either nuns or priests? How do you go about that?
Well, I would certainly say that the vocation is, or the graces to become a saint are promised at baptism. So at baptism, the way to become that particular saint that we're each supposed to become, those unique graces are promised to us. So inside the human heart, it's already at work. And different things come, and Sister can speak to her experience. For my experience in finding my vocation, I was one of those very blessed to be taught by sisters. So I saw the beauty of marriage in my own parents. Then I would go to school, and I just loved sister, and it didn't matter which sister it was. And as time went on, I began more and more to realize I want to be like sister. And if someone had said sister who, I'd say I don't care. It's just to be sister, to be a sister. Ultimately, when you start thinking it all through, you just realize my heart is responding by God's grace to religious life. And that's kind of the way my vocation, sisters, was different.
How about you? You went to Harvard and
That's
you
right, yes.
graduated summa cum laude, and were you valedictorian?
Well, I did give the Latin oration at commencement, so.
You did?
Yes,
Wow. How many people give orations at Latin?
Three.
Three?
Well, three people give orations at every commencement. One of them is always in Latin, and two are in English.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes,
That's
but-
terrific. How did you come to decide that you wanted to become a sister?
Well, I think God planted the desire in my heart very early on, and I knew that I wanted to give myself entirely to Him in a very special way. And as I grew older, I realized that the way to do that for me would be through religious life. And when I finally met our community, it was the first time I had ever met sisters in person. I think I had seen some in films, but seeing them, seeing their joy, I knew that this could really be something that I could do. And then from there, it was many more years as I went through school and tried to reconcile the fact that there was a lot that I wanted to do in my life, but that it wouldn't really fulfill me, that I needed to respond to what God wanted me to do, and that would really give me the fullness of life and make me whom He created me to be. And so in junior year of college, I finally accepted that call and told Him that, yes, I would enter a religious life. So.
Wow. I mean, you have so many doors open to you. Of course, you have doors open. I don't know, do you enjoy education? Is your group, are you
teach.
teachers?
Yes,
Are you preachers? Because OP is
We're both.
the order of preachers.
That's right.
That's right, we're both. You can
Yes.
hardly be one without being the other.
Yes, yes.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Well, now you brought some pictures of what it is to be in
Yes.
religious life. Perhaps we could take a look at some of those pictures here
That
on our
would be
screen.
wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
And you
that'd
could
be
explain
wonderful.
what they are.
Okay, I would love to. This is one of our sisters who's actually now teaching in California, in a high school in California. And this is one of her little nieces. She has a very large family.
She has quite a few, yes.
Yes, and so this is one of hers. So this is Sister Teresa Benedicta, who's in Marin Catholic High School in California,
Oh,
in San
the Bay Area.
Francisco. Exactly.
I see in the next picture.
This is really our superior. This is Mother Assumpta. And every religious community has a particular superior who's the Mother General or the, of the entire group that has various levels under. She is the Mother Superior of our entire group, and so she is Mother Assumpta.
Was she a founder along with yourself?
Yes. She's one of the four founders.
I see.
Founders.
All right, the next picture.
That's our community's pro-life banner. That's one of the ways that I first got to know the sisters. After meeting them in Michigan, I would always go to the pro-life march in Washington, and I would always, through the thousands of people, I would find our community. And Sister Joseph Andrews been there year after year. So,
Wow.
yes.
And she would always come running up. We have met a lot of vocations in pro-life work because, again, it's that same maternal heart that's working to save the lives of children who aren't physically necessarily related to us, And so that's that spiritual motherhood reaching out. And so a sister has a very spiritually maternal heart. And pro-life work just is perfect for us. We love it.
Well, terrific. And the next picture?
This was taken in Texas, and it's three of our sisters who are missioned in Austin, Texas. And the father of this little guy is actually works in the Chancery in Texas, and their family is just absolutely beautiful. Their children tend to be preemies, and so whenever the wife is due for the next birth, we really just start praying and everything. And so as soon as we can, we rush over to the hospital, and this one was just born when we got to hold it. Yeah.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
And that's the father along with the... And who do we have here?
Mother and Sister Joseph Andrew.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of pro-life young people.
Is that taken in D.C. or up in Ann Arbor?
This was taken on our way down, from D.C. back home to Ann Arbor, and we stopped at a rest area, and up come all these, people gathering around. We saw you at the pro-life march. We were there marching too, and this is a particular parish in Illinois that we know very well, and we thought that their T-shirts were very clever because together they make life.
Right. Definitely, yeah. Well, very good.
Yeah.
That's one of our sisters. She's a teacher, Sister Maria Miguel, and a couple of her students at school.
And is the school in Ann Arbor or?
This particular one, she is teaching now also in California, in Sacramento.
So we have two schools in Ann Arbor, and then we also teach in other ones throughout the country.
Oh, you do? Oh,
So
okay.
our schools are Spiritus Sanctus Academies, and they're K through 8, but we also teach in Detroit, and we teach in Catholics. So we're K through 12 with some sisters teaching in college as well now. So in our 17 years, we've really expanded a great deal. So we teach almost all over the country, and then we have 4 sisters in Rome right now as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they're educating some of the cardinals over there.
It's interesting, isn't it?
So, yeah. All right, the
Yeah.
next picture with
Yeah. Oh, this sister absolutely is a born teacher. She is, she's more mischievous than her children are. So it's just a beautiful example of sister just loves teaching, and she usually has the second graders so she can prepare them for first confession as well as first Holy Communion. So this is in our school, and those are our school uniforms, our children's uniforms. So this is in Ann Arbor.
a lot of smiling kids in that picture.
Yes.
Yes.
She keeps them smiling.
All right. And the next,
This is Sister Mary Samuel, another foundress, and she is holding a little baby that belongs to, we have 3 vocation discernment retreats every year and 1 mom's retreat. And each of these, we can hold up to 180 women. And so they're usually packed with 180. The mom's retreat, which is in December, closes out registration in the end of June with 180. And so they can...
are the moms looking to become nuns?
The moms are just making a beautiful spiritual retreat.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Oh,
so
I
and they
see.
come again from all over. But we have had them on the girls' retreat, which are the discernment retreats, so the girls versus the moms anyway. And those, they have come from over Europe and even as far as Australia for a 24-hour retreat. So it's really a beautiful experience. But that particular one, a mom brought her little baby, and
Oh, wow.
the sisters love to take care of the babies
Yes.
while the moms are in retreat.
I see.
we
Oh,
do.
very interesting. Were there any other pictures that
I
we have?
believe that's probably it.
That looks
Yeah.
like it's
Oh, okay. All right. And let me ask you, I've interviewed many post-abortive women who are now very pro-life.
Yes.
Would post-abortive women be people that might consider coming into religious life?
You know, not usually. The thought might go through their mind, but what I have found in speaking with them is once a woman, especially once she really becomes pregnant, that maternal heart for the physical motherhood really turns on. It's just hormonal. It just takes place in her body, and it's beautiful. And usually that woman will want more hands-on with children, whether or not she, and most probably will get married and have their own children. Others perhaps won't for whatever reason, but maybe they'd find themselves wanting to be around children more than we're able to, because we teach, but then we come back to a monastic spirituality. So the children aren't going to follow us home. And that's the beautiful thing, I think, that once God turns on that motherly or fatherly physical element in a person, I think especially the maternal, that woman really does desire, you know, the contact with children in a way that we certainly wouldn't be able to do that because we're teachers instead of, you know, really adopting children or whatever. So usually they would not be happy in a convent because that's not their spirituality.
I see. And so when you go out on missions to say, you know, we're out here, we're looking for folks that would be interested, what sort of person are you looking for?
Basically, first of all, you would say that you're looking for a very faith-filled person. Now, they might not consider themselves faith-filled. I have found that many times because they're more at that stage of life. They're more concerned about their lacks than their pluses, so to speak. Like, oh, I could never do that. You really have to be holy to do that. And the reality is we each do what we're supposed to do by God's grace, not because any of us are, you know, we respond to the grace, but it can be a very misunderstood concept, mainly because, and you mentioned this, people growing up today haven't seen sisters. Yes. And so there's misconceptions like, are they really human and are they really, all that kind of stuff. And then when they're around us, they're like, wow, you've got a great sense of humor. You really have this joy. You know what's going on in the world. You're not just hidden away from, we're like, well, what in the world did you think? Thank God. And, no, you're wrong, you know. And then they begin to say, well, maybe that's what's been tugging at my heart, but I just didn't know where to put it because as beautiful as marriage is, I don't think that that's for me. Perhaps it could be a religious vocation because I think I have more of a spiritual maternal heart, so to speak, and I would love to be able to vow my entire life to God through poverty, chastity, and obedience. But they didn't really know what the language or where to find that answer is because they don't see sisters much today.
They don't see much
That's
out
part
about.
of what drives our community to get out and go because there are vocations everywhere to religious life. But you kind of have to go out there and find them today.
And are you focusing here in Boston on the colleges? Is that it?
Yes, colleges and youth groups. Yes.
And youth groups? What would be a youth group, for instance?
Well, actually,
whom are you seeing in the colleges also?
well, a couple of nights ago we were at BC and we spent yesterday at Harvard and we were at MIT today and we'll be going to a couple more colleges in the coming days and also speaking to a youth group here in Boston. It's called Pure in Heart, and it's at St. Clement's Eucharistic Shrine. So
that's tonight.
yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So those are some of the things that we're doing.
We've had Keely Ray on. I don't know if you know her, but
Keely Ray.
she's an interesting person. I don't know if she'll be there tonight, but
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
yeah. And what is the biggest hurdle or objection for a young woman considering? I presume these are people in their late teens and 20s primarily.
Right,
What is the biggest? I'll call it a divine sales process. What is the biggest objection that you'd hear, or most common objection to why they weren't considering thinking about becoming nuns, or that they wouldn't become a nun?
Yes.
Why they're not considering it as much is because they don't see it, so it's not a part of their world that it would be an option. I mean, some have said to me, I thought the last religious sister died out at St. Teresa of the Child Jesus, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where have you been?
Yes.
But in their world, they don't encounter sisters, Although our community is out there everywhere. We're all over EWTN. When we even did this CD, this Mater Eucharistiae, we were on ABC, NBC, you name it. We were on CBS, everywhere. So we really are part of John Paul II's new evangelization to try to recapture the world for God in the ways that we're able to do it, in the ways that you're doing it here on your wonderful, program. And all these efforts, you never know what's going to strike which person. But in regards to what would be the biggest obstacle, I think primarily, and you can also, but I would say two things. The first one is the young woman questions whether or not she is good enough for this, which again is a misconception because God works with whoever He wants. It's God's work. We just respond. We're not the initiators of any vocation, whether it be it marriage or whatever. So that's a misconception. And then as the girl starts getting closer, many times it can be a misunderstanding of the parents that, oh my gosh, I don't want my daughter doing that. We educated you, we expect, they just expected her life of this daughter to be very different. And a lot of times it's because the parents don't understand religious life, or maybe they've seen religious life, but they haven't liked the version of it, so to speak, that they've seen, and they don't really know our community or know the closeness of our sisters, or the average age is 30 years old. I mean, these things aren't known by the common person who might be considering religious life. But when they come and see it, and I really do ask them to make one of these retreats, because then they can tell they either fit or they don't fit, or I like it, but it's not me, so where should I go next? And we'll tell them other good communities to go look at, or cloistered communities, or we just try to help young women find their vocation by God's design, whatever vocation He gave.
And how long is this retreat that they go to? Is it?
It's 24 hours, so it's Saturday to Sunday, so it fits very well into a busy schedule, but it's a really packed 24 hours. So there's all-night Eucharistic adoration, and that's when it really all happens, because Christ is who it's all about. So He's doing the calling and the talking, but we also have.
So do you go in on a Friday night or a Saturday? Is it a weekend type of thing? Or do you go in on a Friday night and leave on a Sunday night, or?
Yes,
or is it...
pretty much. A lot of the young women fly in on
Those
Friday.
who fly in, and that's usually at least half the group, if not more than half, they will come in on Friday night, because even though they're sleeping on the floor that particular night, they get more rest than they're going to the next night, because the next night is going to be with Jesus. And so you really want them, the whole first part of the retreat is to open them up, because their lives are so busy and they have so many concerns, and on a retreat you have to leave those behind. So the first part of the retreat is just to get them to be honest before God, to get them to be quiet, which is hard for women to do, to calm down, and just to be receptive to God. And then they have all night with Christ in the Eucharist, and then the next portion of it, and the next day with Mass and other things that are going on, they're kind of unpacking what they think that He was telling them that night, or they're talking to different people and trying to just kind of figure some of this out. And I've seen many miraculous graces given through these retreats, and then it ends at 3 and they leave.
3 on Sunday?
So they're back at school or work or wherever they've come from on Monday.
And do they sign up on Sunday, or do they get back to you, or do you call them back, or how does that work?
They decide that some of them, it's different things, but say a girl who is very much interested in possibly entering, and we've had a one-on-one, and it looks to me and to others that this really could be true, then we begin emailing. And so through email, we just kind of carry on this conversation. Every once in a while, perhaps a phone call, but that's really, really good, and to ask them to keep in contact. And then they have many pages. It's kind of it's a very detailed application process that they have to go through if they're going to be considered to enter our community. And sometimes at the end of it, it's, you're beautiful, God has a plan, but it's not going to be this community. Or sometimes it's, it looks like everything's fine. Are you thinking this year, or should we wait a little while? Or so it's different with every single one, because you want the right timing, and the certain level of maturity is essential, or they may as well not even come. So you're asking for a mature woman who has been a person who has been quite moral, not perfect, but she desires to be holy, and she prays, and she's normal. She's just normal, thank God. So if you find all that and her own heart's desire is, I really think this is it, this feels like home to me, then that's a very good possibility.
Well, gosh, our time is already...
My goodness,
Yeah.
you're kidding.
I'm not kidding. It's been a very educational on my part. It's
Well,
been
God
very
bless
quick.
Thank you so much.
Can
Thank
let me
you.
just ask you in closing, what you're down in Florida right now?
That's right.
And do you miss your community, or is there some of it down there with you?
Some of it's down there with me. So we always go in groups. We always, that's essential to Dominican religious life, is that we live in community. So
Oh.
there are 5 of us down there, 3 teachers in K through 12, 1 at the university, and then I'm a student. So we have a bit of the community, which is, in its way, all of the community, but we do get back to Ann Arbor as an entire community a couple times a year. So
I see.
we
Well,
look
great.
forward to that.
Well, thank you, sisters, for
Thank
coming on the show.
you.
Really
God
appreciate
bless
it.
you.
And I certainly have learned a lot, and I'm sure the folks out in the audience have learned a lot, too. And then if they wanted to get in touch with you, do you have a web address?
Yes, we do.
We do. So it's sistersofmary.org.
Yeah.
Sistersofmary.org. Okay,
Exactly.
great. Well, thank you so much. Well, we hope you found today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life. Well, welcome Lila Rose.
Thanks, Brendan, for having me on.
Lila, today we were going to look at the issue, and it's been spoken about on this show somewhat, but it has to do with sex selection. How did this come up or come onto your radar screen, sex selection? What is sex selection for our audience, and could you delve into that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, right now we're missing over 100 million little girls in the world today, in countries all over the world, which has led to huge gender imbalances where there's more boys than girls, which leads to economic problems, which leads to huge social problems, spurs on sex trafficking, and so many other horrible things. And this is a problem not only in India and China and places like that in Asia, but it's also a problem here in the United States. And even in some parts of our country, like my hometown of San Jose, California, the Bay Area, some of the gender imbalances, so there's more boys than girls, are even